Good evening, everyone. We're just going to give everyone a few more minutes to join here. It's just about 7 o'clock, and we'll be getting started in just the next few minutes. All right, well, while we wait for everybody to join, I'm going to welcome everyone that's here already as we start the virtual town hall. I'm going to start with some updates and some townwide things that are going on to get this evening started before I really get into the development and redevelopment discussion or any other topics that anyone wants to address this evening. First, Wednesday evenings, we have our outdoor movies at the Rec, indoors if it rains. You can arrive around 7:30 if you're looking to attend. This week is Zootopia. Next week, we'll round out our summer outdoor movies with Star Wars. Again, arrive around 7:30. The movie starts a little while after that as it gets dark. On Thursday evenings, we have our concerts in the park. Join us at Wilmore Park for the concerts each Thursday with the assistance of ABC. I want to thank them for everything they keep doing week after week there, setting outstanding bands together and getting our concerts going. On Sundays, our town favorite farmers market. There's so many great vendors there. If you haven't been there, it's way beyond just a farmers market in the typical sense with fruits and vegetables. There are so many great vendors, so make your way down to the municipal building between 9 and 2. Also, this year, backed by popular demand, is our townwide yard sale. That'll be on September 18th, and on the 19th will be the rain date. You can sign up on Community Pass. It's a $5 cost to sign up this year. You will be added to the virtual map that everybody will be able to access. But in order to be added to the virtual map, please make sure you sign up by Thursday, September 16th, to make sure that you are on the list and able to be on the virtual map and visible by everyone. If you haven't already done so, please sign up for the email blasts that go out townwide at www.lfnj.com. A lot of good information is constantly being put out through the email blast, so make sure you do that. By way of a couple of other updates, and just to share some information, I know I've announced this one other time before, but this is really big news for Little Falls. As far as the FEMA National Flood Insurance Program, we are now a Class 5 rating. We have been upgraded yet again. This is important to anyone in town who has or is required to maintain flood insurance. We, Little Falls residents who maintain flood insurance, will now see a 25% discount on their insurance. That started this past October 1st. And this incredible percent discount actually saves Little Falls residents to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. Some other updates before we get into all of the development are that the streetscapes, the first phase of our streetscape, is nearly complete. And I say nearly complete because the sidewalks on Maple have been installed, as well as the buffers. We are still awaiting some additional finishing touches, such as the lights, the signs, the poles, some of those things. But those will be installed in the upcoming month or two. Unfortunately, much like every industry right now, there's a lot of backlog with a lot of the items that the contractor is waiting to install in public service as well. So if you haven't seen it, you can check it out on Maple Street. There is going to be phase 2 and 3 starting in the spring. That phase will be on Main Street from Maple to Center Ave. And again, hopefully breaking ground in the spring of 22 with that project. As far as some of our downtown parking and parking lots, the town actually just delivered today to my office was the contract with PNC Bank to acquire to purchase the PNC lot from them to turn it into municipal parking. It's been in the works for nearly 2 years now, and it was extremely slow moving, but the contract is now ready for signature. So I am ready to sign that tomorrow, and we can get that completely wrapped up. Finally, just a brief overview of what to expect tonight before we really get into it, as the last few people sign on. Tonight's discussion is primarily going to be about development and redevelopment townwide. We'll talk about some of the areas that have some proposed projects now. We'll talk about the process. We'll talk about the pilot that was offered in town to one of the projects so far. We'll talk about the affordable housing aspects. We'll talk about school impacts, and we'll also talk about traffic impacts. And then we'll get into some Q&A. I want everyone to know that I have had a number of questions submitted to me by email from people who wish to remain anonymous. I responded to them individually, but I also included in part of the outline that I will be addressing this evening all of the questions that they had. So they will all be getting their answers this evening on this town hall as well. So I want to make sure that anybody who sent an anonymous or wish to remain anonymous will in fact remain that way. So you won't hear any names or who asked questions. I'll simply be including it in my overview this evening. So first, let's talk about downtown. There is some development that is being proposed or was recently proposed for downtown, and a number of other lots in the downtown that remain undeveloped at this time, with the obvious intent to have them redeveloped. Now, first, I venture to say that there's no one in town that would disagree that our Little Falls downtown needs a facelift. It's dated, it's in need of some TLC. And this was actually initially addressed in the township's master plan, which was adopted in 2013, even long before I was even elected to the council or as mayor. Just a very, very, very brief overview of the master plan, which is a very long document. Some of the township questionnaires that went out townwide and had tons of public input. Some of the things that Little Falls downtown and that the residents wanted in downtown were revitalization, streetscape improvements, ratables. Those were some of the bullet points that were outlined in the master plan. There were the downtown image as one of the major concerns, as well as wayfinding signs. Some of the other things that the Little Falls residents sought to achieve was an improvement of our schools, which incredibly, our schools are now on the absolute top echelon, and the schools are doing an outstanding job. And again, another note about the downtown revitalization needed, and there were comments about poor parking and more downtown parking if our downtown is going to expand and flourish, which I just briefly addressed with the purchase of the PNC lot. Now, that said, as far as the Transit Village zone, this is separate from the master plan. This is something that was adopted in October of 2016. At that time, I was on the council. I was in the minority on the council at the time, and there was a Republican mayor and council. I will say, and I don't, hide from it, that I was supportive of the vision that was part of the October 2016 Transit Village. Fortunately or unfortunately, it wasn't my sole idea. It's not just my administration that was in favor of this, and the concept certainly predates all of us in office now. At the time, everyone agreed this was the direction the township needed to go, and this is what ultimately resulted. It's the township's master plan in 13 and the Transit Village in 2016. Now, the Transit Village addressed density in downtown and surrounding areas. There was development and redevelopment in Little Falls for decades and decades, even prior to my administration. In fact, as you look around and drive down Main Street in Little Falls, you'll notice there's brownstone apartments on Main Street. You'll notice there's the Park Lane apartments on Main Street. You know, as you continue through town, that there's the Inwood townhomes, which were built some 45 plus years ago. You'll also note that the most recent redevelopment that the Township of Little Falls has really seen prior to these past couple of years is the mill, which was redeveloped, or the final phase of that, some 25 years ago. The town's redevelopment has essentially stopped since then. There were some substantial approvals that were made since then, but the market dropped out from under everyone, and developers backed out and never completed projects such as the Abbey and Autumn Point, which I'm going to talk about a little more later. There's redevelopment, and it's pretty clear that redevelopment in any town really requires the perfect storm. And the real estate market now is really that perfect storm where, again, smart development needs to be considered by towns across the entire nation. Because, again, increasing ratables and offsetting tax bases are something that you need to do in order to keep your head afloat. Now, a brief history of Little Falls. Many may know that Little Falls was originally a farming community. It then kind of converted to a resort community, with the Passaic River being a hot destination. And then as of late, we've been an extremely suburban community. And I think that is the feeling that everybody wishes to maintain and wishes to maintain in the charm of Little Falls. The town has seen eras of change time and time again, but I think we would all agree right now that the suburban feel is something that we all want to see maintained throughout the entire town. Now, what you need to consider is, what is this downtown in Little Falls going to look like in 30 years if nothing happens there? What if there's no facelift now? What if there's no redevelopment? Little Falls needs to remain a viable place for the future. And development is not about the past. Development is about looking forward. It's about the future. All of the development and all the new ratables, they are all essential, again, to maintaining all of our property values throughout the town, whether in the area of redevelopment or not, and maintaining a stable tax base. As you look around through other cities or towns like Belleville or Harrison, they used to be vibrant communities. Jersey City was a vibrant community. It's now bouncing back. It's all because of redevelopment. Another great example, Hoboken. Look at Hoboken in the 70s. It was an unsafe area. It was certainly not a real destination for you, but now it's extremely vibrant again. Again, all of this because of redevelopment. Now, granted, these are extreme examples. Are we going to become Hoboken overnight? No. And I don't think anybody here wants to become Hoboken overnight. That's not the intention of any of the redevelopment in Little Falls. But again, this opportunity to redevelop may not come for another 25 years in town if we don't strike while the iron is hot and while the market calls for it. Again, the Abbey and Autumn Point are perfect examples. Two projects that were approved nearly 15 years ago, but never got off the ground. Now, let's talk about the first major redevelopment that's happening in town, referred to as the Singac redevelopment area. It's in the area where 381 used to be, and illegal, and all of those factories on Main Street, somewhat across from the mill. Now, that is an 8-acre site. It was previously zoned industrial. What does that mean? That means that trucks, 18-wheelers, were all permitted on the roadways, and were frequently, visiting that area before this redevelopment occurred. And anyone who was looking to continue using that zone as an industrial zone would have been permitted to do that. Frankly, Little Falls Main Street, it's not an industrial zone. It's across from all residential neighborhoods. And does anyone really want 18-wheelers coming up and down their street all day, every day? I can tell you the answer is no. Now, what was approved there? And I'm just going to glaze over this one briefly because I've discussed this one a lot in the past, and I'm happy to come back to it if there's more questions. But what was approved there was 185 luxury apartments. And if you're looking at the site, that would be at the right side of the site is 185 luxury apartments. And towards the left-hand side of the site is 102 townhomes. I have asked the developers to provide me with some renderings of what they're going to look like, some updated renderings, and I will hopefully have those posted on the township website within the next couple of days. And what's important to note is this project had a pilot. Now, I know there's a number of people who associate a pilot and have a negative connotation associated with it. Really, a pilot is something that is sometimes necessary in order to make a project financially feasible. Why is that? I'll tell you. The developer paid $24.5 million for an $8 million worth of assessed property. Now, you may sit here and say, well, that's their problem. Why would they ever purchase it for that cost? The answer is this. The answer is because there was an agreement to enter into a pilot. Now you say, well, then why offer the pilot? And the answer is short, and it's this. Because the alternative is that site would have remained an industrial site. It would have remained Rainbow Caterers. It would have remained illegal. It would have remained vacant factories or factories with 18-wheelers all day, every day, if this project was not approved with a pilot. So again, this is something that there is a mutual benefit to. There's a mutual benefit to the developer as well as all of us as residents of this town and taxpayers of this town. Very brief overview of this pilot. The 8-acre site, which is now where this redevelopment is occurring, used to bring in taxes about $300,000 annually. That was an entire amount that was split between the schools, the township, and the county. This new pilot, under the pilot, that same property is going to bring in over $1 million more per year annually. Let me put that in perspective to everyone here. These 8 acres in Little Falls make up about 0.004% of the total town acreage. They will pay about 5% of the total annual local budget. It is a very significant number. And I will get into in a few minutes the schools, and I'll get into a few minutes the traffic and all of those things, because I know those are concerns about this project. And again, I'm happy to answer more questions in the Q&A, but I'm going to move on because I've discussed this project in the past. Let's talk about some recent planning board developments and some of the comments and concerns. The first thing I want to make clear to everybody here this evening is that writing comments on Facebook and on social media is not the same as coming to a meeting and voicing your concerns. While I know this council, attempts to monitor a number of the comments and provide responses when appropriate, it's impossible to keep up. Sometimes the same topic is on 7 different pages, and again, it's just not feasible. So if you have a real concern, email us. Email me, call me, text me. I'm happy to respond to them. Now, again, the Main and Stevens intersection. I have had a number of questions raised about this particular intersection and about projects that may be happening there. All that I can say right now with respect to Main Street and Stevens Ave is that there is no proposed project. I have not, and the town has not, or no one in this administration has seen any plans regarding that site. The owner has not approached anyone with anything for us to review at this point. What can I tell you? What can you expect to see there? I can tell you, usually what we could expect to see because of the zoning is a mixed use site. What does mixed use mean? Mixed use means that on the first floor, there will be retail establishments, and on the second and third floors, based upon the zone, there's 3 stories available. The second and third floors will be residential. Now, again, I don't know exactly what this looks like. I don't know the size. I don't know the unit count. But what I can tell you is that based upon the zone, that is what is permitted there. Moving on to Main and Center. Main and Center, it's a mixed-use building that was just approved by the planning board about 2 weeks ago. There's going to be several storefronts on Main Street and 56 one-bedroom residential units above. There may be some 2- and 3-bedroom requirements that are imposed by Fair Share Housing, which has to do with, again, the affordable housing that I'll discuss in a little bit. But the developer, in proposing this project here, did not require many variances. And the variances that were required were extremely minor. They were considered de minimis variances. And the biggest variance that the planning board had to consider was whether or not to approve, in just a small portion of this property, a 5-foot setback rather than a 10-foot setback. The developer was asking for 5 feet of leniency. There were 2 aesthetic towers proposed instead of 1. And the developer actually overparked this development by by about 20 spaces. So again, there weren't many variances. I know there were some people that were upset or concerned about this particular project, but what the developer was doing was building as of right, almost as of right in this zone. And again, I can address more of that on some Q&A later. As far as the area of 451 Main Street, 451 Main is the area over the tracks, now the Martirano building. It's where the laundromat is on Main Street, near the railroad tracks. The property owner there is proposing about 60 units in that area. There are some parking spaces and variances being discussed with the planning board, but what's being proposed there is a 55+ community. That's an area where there will be no students, there will be no children allowed in that development, and it's an area that, again, is still before the planning board. Now, as far as 215 Newark Pompton Turnpike, there's a development proposed there. It's largely one-bedroom units. There is a lot of, essentially, one of the concerns that residents in that area have expressed is the water conditions in the area. I can tell you, and again, this is before the plan, or this will be before the planning board soon, there will be less impervious area there after this project is completed than there is now. And finally, the last one I'm just going to briefly highlight is the Patterson Ave redevelopment. The council recently approved the redevelopment plan in this area. It permits mixed use on both the east and west sides of Patterson Ave, and the actual plan has not yet been submitted by the developer or the property owner in that area. Now, what's important to note is this. There are no added expenses necessary for the town as a result of these developments. What do I mean by that? That means no added police, no added fire, no added EMS, no added DPW, and there's no additional cost to the schools to do this. I have had a number of conversations with the schools, and one of the biggest concerns that I hear frequently is how are our schools going to handle the influx of children? Again, I'm going to highlight this and move on quickly. Of the major developments that have been completed in town recently, the Abbey, 50 townhomes, Autumn Point, 24 townhomes, 44 Main, 34 units there. There are a total of 5 children that have been added to our schools. 5 children from 108 total units. I will tell you, none of these 3 projects were approved when I was mayor. They were all approved prior to even my administration. Now, I say that because what you have to understand is that most of these units are 1 and 2 bedrooms, some are 3, but they're not typically conducive to school-age children. Schools have extremely small class sizes now, and to briefly touch upon them, right now an average class size is 17 students in Little Falls. There's a total of 52 classrooms being used that makes up these, class size of 17 students. That's important because 52 students can be added to our school system with our class size only going up 1. And again, we're at 17 now, very small class sizes. It's not a real concern. And again, these types of developments are not conducive to children. Right now, I'm going to just quickly highlight the fact that there were 139 single-family homes that were affected by FEMA. Many of those were 3 and 4 bedroom homes, which means that is a place that's typically more conducive to having a child or children grow up. Now, to find the final item that I want to hit before I open it up to questions and answers really has to do with our schools, their budgets, and the impact that this will have to them financially, especially with respect to the pilot. Very important to note, our school budget is not impacted by the pilot. The schools set their own budgets, and the township raises whatever amount of funds necessary in order for the school to meet their annual expenses. Little Falls is a type 2 district. What that means is the Board of Ed at each of the schools, whether it be the local school or the high school, sets their own budgets, and each municipality, whether for Passaic Valley and Little Falls for the Little Falls schools, will again raise those funds in taxes to provide and pay to the schools. So the schools do not see a negative impact because of this budget. The last thing that I really want to touch upon, well, 2 last things that I really want to touch upon. The first is affordable housing. What does this mean? There are a lot of questions and valid questions, but I think there's a lot of misnomers that circulate around affordable housing. It is, first of all, it's mandated by the state. There's no way around it. We have entered into a settlement through the courts that 15% of units built when there's over 4 units in town need to comply with affordable housing. This is not Section 8 housing. It's not subsidized housing. And to give you an idea of the income requirements, very quickly again, a single person can be earning under $53,000 a year annually and qualify. A 3-person household, whether that be a single parent with 2 kids, can be earning under $69,000 a year and qualify. A 6-person household with 2 income earners and 4 children can be earning under $110,000 a year and still qualify. It is not Section 8 housing. It is not subsidized housing. So it's safe to say that almost everyone at some point in their life would have qualified to reside in one of these units. Oftentimes, it's police officers, firemen, teachers, and other professionals that are earlier in their career who qualify for these housing. So there's no reason for this continued negative connotation. Finally, I'm going to address the traffic through Little Falls. I know this has been another major concern. I can say this. There were 323 units that were constructed at the mill. There were 300 units that were constructed at Inwood. I would venture to say that there's no one that has ever said the mill has really created traffic for us here in Little Falls, or the Inwood development has really created traffic for us here in Little Falls. Little Falls residents do not create Little Falls traffic. Little Falls traffic is created by the hundreds and hundreds of people per day that use Little Falls roads as a cut through, primarily because of the Route 46 interchange and construction that's happening there. Once that project is completed, I would venture to say that it would be better to stay on the highway, and you'd make much better time than you would coming off and using the Little Falls back roads. I can't wait for that project to be completed, as I'm sure most of you would agree. One of the other things that we've done for traffic in town recently is we have changed the timing of the traffic lights in Little Falls to allow traffic to flow east more so at rush hour in the evening than anything, which has really alleviated a lot of the traffic at the Union intersection as well as the Stevens Ave intersection on Main Street. Finally, before I really open it to questions and answers, I want to point out, because this has been a major misnomer on social media, especially, first and foremost, I'm not a realtor. I have nothing to do with any of these real estate developments in town. All of these sales are handled internally by leasing offices and sales offices that these individual developers have. It has nothing to do with me. I have no personal gain from any of these developments. The only thing I want to see is Little Falls thrive. So with that said, I'm going to open it up to some questions here. I'm just going to ask people to raise their hands so I can unmute everybody one at a time and answer some questions. So feel free to raise your hand, and I'll call on you, and you can unmute yourself and ask some questions. And for anyone that doesn't know how, under the reactions icon, you can hit reactions and you can raise your hand that way. And I already see people commenting that they don't believe me about the realtor statements. Most people don't, but that's okay. I don't have a real estate license. I'm an attorney. I practice law in town. I have nothing to do with any real estate in town, so that's fine. I am going to open it to Francis Schultz to begin.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Francis Schultz. I do live at the mill, and I sent you a number of questions, many of which you've answered tonight. Thank you very much. But one of the things I asked about was how to make our sidewalks and bike travel safer through this corridor in the Main Street corridor. Because if we want to make it a transit village, if we want to make it conducive to people walking and using the stores that are going to be created through mixed use construction, then we have to provide a safe means for pedestrians and bicycles to navigate our streets. Currently, that does not exist. So what are the plans to improve that?
Sure. So part of the plans to improve it is the streetscape, which is underway. Again, it's going to be a number of years. This is so let me also backtrack about the streetscapes. All of the streetscapes are being funded by DOT grants, New Jersey DOT grants. They are paying for almost the entirety, if not all, of the streetscape projects that we have happening in town. Part of those is widening sidewalks where available. Unfortunately, we can't move buildings. Obviously, we can't move them back. But the streetscapes is one of the ways we're looking to safety, particularly the sidewalks. As far as bike travel, whether people know this or not, most bike travel is supposed to happen on the roadways. Vehicles and bicycles are supposed to share roadways. Making that safer, that is something that I've actually continued to talk to the county about, because it's primarily county roads that need to address the bike travel. As you see on Broward Town Road, they added a bike lane. Doing that along parts of Main Street is also something that I'm talking to the county about to make bike travel a little bit safer as well. Are there any other questions?
Can I,
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
can I ask a follow-up? Just painting some green lines and paint along the side of Broward Town does not make a safe bike path. I know in other places, they've moved parking away from the curbs to create safe bike lanes and places where they can have, the stores can have people dining on the sidewalks without fear of being hit by cars. Is there any way to change the parking structure along Main Street that would allow that to happen?
So yes, there is actually an intention to remove parking on Main Street west of Stevens Ave, which is the extremely narrow section of Stevens Ave. I was waiting for the PNC lot to be acquired before reproposing this to the council, primarily because parking is at a premium in downtown right now. So once the PNC lot is acquired, doing that in the, again, west between really Stevens Ave and Center Ave, widening the road there a little bit by removing parking is one thing that we were looking to do. There's no simple answer to making the streets safer for bicycles. I think the unfortunate truth of it is that people in their vehicles really need to slow down and travel safer, as just a general statement. Any other questions from anyone? Yeah, 124, feel free.
Yes, hi. I guess I would like to read a prepared statement. I wasn't sure who was going to be on this, so I guess this statement was not only just also food for thought, but also kind of in a response from some of the past, I guess, past treatment that I myself have received from past town meetings. If that would be okay.
Sure.
Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind, that when I say in reference to you, it doesn't particularly just mean you, you know? So, in conversations with many other concerned residents, it seems like it is not the growth that we are opposed to, but it is the rapid overgrowth within a short period of time. I understand that growth is needed, but not in the manner which big developers and profiteers envisioned, or at least that's what we envision. This is contrary to the character and the community feel of Little Falls, and this is the reason why a lot of people have come to love, stay, and live in Little Falls. So, you say it is good for the good of Little Falls, but that means mistakes couldn't be made. Why do I say this? When the township proposed in the past the conversion of a portion of School No. 1's playground into a parking lot, the citizens spoke up against it and the proposal was withdrawn. Why would you take away a playground for the school? So I find that interesting. Maybe that's a mistake. And what of the cannabis proposal? Approved medical usage is one thing. The growth and distribution, while technically not legal in federal eyes, is another. That a mistake? Maybe. So when I called 115 Main and the Abbey Stevens project part of Transit Village, it was said that I was mistaken. And I'm pretty sure everybody remembers that. Yet in the April 2021, and even yourself right now, you also refer to all of this as the Transit Village. So even in documentation, April 21st, downtown redevelopment plan, the document, page 6, figure 3, existing condition refers to this, quote unquote, as the downtown redevelopment area is currently zoned for Transit Village. But when I mentioned it, I was clearly said that I was mistaken. So yeah, I am a little, I guess, upset about that one, because I was pretty sure I heard in the past with the meetings with the Abbey and the Stevens project, that was actually one of the main selling points every time we brought up traffic. Correct me if I'm wrong, with the other residents as well. So, let me see. So it's also been referred to Transit Village and other various places subsequent in that same document and other various documents. Or was that a mistake? just as Central Ave or Center Street was a mistake, a documentation mistake. So when we, the residents, expressed concern regarding traffic, even from the Abbey project and initially the Stevens Ave project, it was said that traffic wasn't a concern or a traffic study was not warranted because of such a low volume. It was quote unquote insignificant. Yet in your improvement application, improvements to Stevens Avenue proposal, and the purpose of this grant is to enhance pedestrian safety and so forth. It says infrastructure purpose, pedestrian safety, primary project purpose is to enhance pedestrian safety, example, new sidewalks, new crosswalks, traffic calming, and so forth. And then in your fiscal year 2022 Safe Streets to Transit funding to complete improvements to Stevens Ave between Main Ave and Walnut, it says, quote unquote, this corridor is centrally located, high traffic thoroughfare.
So let me just start responding to a couple of them before I lose track. So first, as far as you mentioned the school parking lot. Again, I will tell you, I'm not too proud to say that I'm wrong at times. I'm certainly not. It was something that was proposed. It was brought out to the public, and a number of individuals says, no, we said we don't want to see that there. So we just said, that's, you know what, you raised good points. We're willing to modify that position, and we did. The same with cannabis in town. There was a section of town that said, well, you know, we'd prefer to not see this development or this be permitted in this area. And again, the township council modified the position that, you know what, maybe everybody raised a good point. Maybe it shouldn't be there. Again, I'm not afraid to say that I'm wrong when I'm wrong, or when somebody raises a good point that they've raised a good point. As far as Center Ave, Center Street, the name of the street, the fact that the number of individuals that had a comment about the name of the street that was prepared by a firm from outside of Little Falls, having the wrong street name, if that is the biggest issue that somebody has with a development, to me, that's not an issue. And I say that because that issue was raised more than a dozen times at the meeting, but that was not the crux of what the issues could be. The name of the street is not the issue. Now, as far as traffic, I need to address this. I heard a number of concerns about, and I know you're focused on the Center Ave and Main redevelop, project there. The traffic, that issue that you raised, what you need to understand is this, is that if the number of units and the development is being built as of right, the number of units are being built as of right, you cannot deny an application because of traffic or a traffic study or traffic flow or any of those things. If it is permitted, that is not a valid reason to deny it. That is something that would be lost in court 10 times out of 10. And I say that because while I understand the concerns that people have about traffic in Little Falls, it's not, and the town had no ability to deny an application for that reason. So I just wanted to comment on those few things before we move on. I see
Okay.
Mr. Fernandez, you have your hand raised?
Well, I'm sorry, I wasn't done.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so number one, yes, I appreciate you admitting that, if there was mistakes done, that, you could admit them. That's very gracious. That's very, that's awesome. Again, though, this is, so that what bothers us is not particularly the technicality of this, the street name and everything, right? So, we're under the impression that there's lawyers, engineers, all these professional peoples that are who are supposed to be reviewing these professional documents, right? I mean, when you go into court, you got to make sure, you as an attorney, know, you make sure that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, right?
Sure.
And so can you imagine how uncomfortable the residents feel when something like this passes through so many hands, so many eyes that were supposed to read through the intricacies of this, and something so obvious, kind of, yes, while simple, but obvious, gets past all of these people? So that's the point on that one.
So I guess the short answer to that is, whether you call it Center Ave or Center Street really does not change a project. So to me, that is something that's an administrative error. I'm not offended by that. And look, I would like to keep this meeting moving along. So, rather than focus on one particular street name, I would just like to keep this meeting moving. So I'm happy to address any other questions that you may have with regard to development in town. Or again, just so everybody knows, it doesn't have to be about development or redevelopment in town. I'm willing to address anything tonight.
Okay, then one more thing about the schools
Sure.
then. Okay, I wish I marked down which site that I looked this up in, but so it has occurred to me in the past that we have not had the time to address even the schools. And while you did touch on the schools, it says that Little Falls Schools, number one right now, give or take, right, serves about 402. And right now on that particular site, the ranking is 9 out of 10. I would agree, Little Falls Schools has a very good ranking overall. And we would really, really hate to have that diminish. The school number one, the teacher ratio right now is said to be 9-1 versus the state level at 12-1. Now with the student population of, give or take, roughly, these are rough numbers, 402, the teacher population of 44 has grown by about 7% over the 5 years of the school. So it's great that it stays 9-1. All right, school number two, which serves about, give or take, 313. All right, has grown 8%. But this ratio, according to these sites that I looked at, I got to get back to you on which sites they were. They're already at a 12-1 ratio. So school number three.
Yeah, so let me briefly respond to just a couple of those things right now. So first, the developments that have been approved in town or ongoing in town or are completed in town clearly did not add to that number. As I indicated, there's a total of 5 kids added from all of the developments that have happened in Little Falls over the past handful of years. So that is clearly not the reason for the school numbers increase. I would venture to say that the reason that school numbers or student population is increasing lately is because our schools are a lighthouse district, the Blue Ribbon District, and you can pay Little Falls and Passaic County taxes and send your kid to a Blue Ribbon District. Sure, people are going to move to Little Falls with young kids. Now, what's important to note is something that I briefly touched upon earlier. If somebody's going to be spending $400,000 or $500,000 on what some of these new townhomes will be, or $2,000 to $3,000 a month on some of these new apartments in town, I would venture to say that it's unlikely that those individuals who are spending $500,000 that have 2 kids are going to purchase a townhome in Little Falls. Rather, they would most likely purchase a home in town for $500,000 that has a yard, that has amenities for a child or children if they have multiple kids. And that's why I don't believe that these types of developments will add students to our schools. The most recent one on Main and Center, as you're well aware, it's proposed as all 1-bedroom units. 0 kids can be a result of that development there. All right, so again, yes, our schools are doing an outstanding job. I give them all the credit in the world. But yeah, numbers, people are going to move to Little Falls for the schools. I'll come back in a little bit if you have a little bit more, but I'm going to give everybody a chance real quick. Mr. Fernandez, I see you have your hand up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. And first of all, I'd like to thank each and every one for showing up. I've never seen so many people attending one of those meetings, to be honest with you. And as you know, I attend them quite often. I don't think I have missed too many. I agree with you in the sense that Little Falls needs development. I do not agree with you in the fact that it's too fast. It's fast moving, and all of a sudden, all these developers, all these projects are being developed. That is the part that I don't like. You said, and I quote, that you have to strike while we're hot, while the ironing is hot, and I agree with you. The part that I don't agree is that, first of all these developers, and I've been, while I was listening to you, I've been reading all these comments from residents, from town residents. I do not like the fact that these developers, like the SINGAC project, they get this pilot program in a brand new apartment. Like you said, it will go roughly for $600,000, a brand new townhouse condominium, whatever you want to call it. They will be paying half of the taxes that each and every resident is paying because of the pilot program. Pilot means, as you know, but let me tell the audience, payment in lieu of taxes. The only thing that I can see that pilot program is benefiting the developer, not the town hall. Granted, the township of Little Falls is going to be making, like you said, roughly $1 million more in taxes yearly, instead of $300,000 that roughly they were paying while that industrial catering was there. But it should have been paying, if everybody pays equally, like each and every other resident, I don't think the township should benefit. These 300 units should give priority to this developer, so he can build 350 units or 400, whatever, how many they are, I don't know. And in the meantime, the other residents are paying 100% of the taxes in the town, while these people are only paying 50%. 30 years from now, like you said, you don't know what Little Falls is going to be looking for 30 years from now. 30 years from now, these people that bought in this development, they will be paying the taxes that you and I are paying right now, 100%.
So yeah, just to briefly respond to that. So first of all, the number, it's two separate projects. You have to look at it as two separate projects. The bigger portion of the pilot is on the multifamily 185 units. It's 287 units in total.
Okay.
The way that the 185 units work is they actually pay a portion of their gross revenues to the municipality. That is how that portion of the pilot works. So they don't pay conventional property taxes under the pilot, in the sense that if the building is assessed at X million dollars, they pay the township ratio a tax rate on that X million dollar assessment. What they will do is pay based upon the money that they make. So that is very different than the percentage or the amount that you're talking about. I can't say that it's half. I don't believe that that's accurate.
Whether it's 50 or 55%, whether it's 50 or 55,
they start paying 10% of their gross revenues. Again, how that equates to what percentage or what amount they would pay or what percentage they would pay had it been conventional, I can't tell you right now. I'm sure.
But he's not. You and I agree that he's not 100% of the.
I agree with you. And again, the explanation
he should have been paying.
Well, no, but I agree with you. But the explanation for that is this: it would have been $0 more had it not been for the pilot, because the developer would have said, "I'm not doing the project," and we would have been stuck with industrial buildings in that area of town. So again, the pilot is offered in these types of situations because you're either stuck with what you got, or you make a deal with a developer so that everybody wins. And that is the reason for the pilot. So that's the explanation on it.
Well, okay, let me just say lastly, everybody wins, meaning the township and the developer. The residents, the ones that we've been here for a while, we don't really gain that much.
How do you say the township wins?
Taxes.
How do you say the township wins without it being
there's more money?
The point is that when the township wins, the residents win. The residents are the township. We are the township. Because your taxes, again, are going to be, you're going to see major stabilization when the township begins collecting about $1 million more per year from this site. So you do win, I do win. Everybody on this call, at least if you live in Little Falls, wins. Mm-hmm. And that's who wins. We all win.
All right. And my last question is this: will these other developments, will they be taking advantage of the pilot, not the pilot, the pilot, payment in lieu of parking? Have they applied for it?
So far, there's no applications that are before the planning board, that are in the immediate downtown area where there's a shortage of parking right now. We've seen one so far, and again, they were overparked by about 20 spaces.
So, but will the planning board consider pile up?
Oh yeah, if there's a shortage of parking spaces where there's, other parking? Sure, certainly. Why would the township not collect on a shortage of parking? And just so everybody's clear, a pileup is a payment in lieu of parking. The township passed an ordinance about 2 years ago that allows us to collect about $5,000 per space in a variance that an applicant may need. So if they're short of parking space, they may owe the town up to $5,000 per space that they are short. So I'm going to move on. Mr. May, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to say thank you for letting me speak. I had a couple of questions in regards to, as my concern would be the Valley Bank project. I don't think it's what we're concerned about is the actual development and upgrading of the town hall, but in the manner in which it was proceeded with. I mean, I understand that you can't stop a project because of parking, but you can stop a project because of variances, because they asked for 10 feet instead of they asked for 5 feet instead of 10 feet. Now with the underground parking, they're actually their built up area and solid area of surface actually increases on this site, which may or may not have been brought up by anybody on this on the planning board. Because I really don't think anybody on the planning board was actually paying attention, considering how shoddy and poor the drawings and the presentation was, and everything was not. It was based on other projects this developer has done and is shoehorning into this site. I just feel like we were hoodwinked on this project and not treated fairly. I mean, this planning board seems to be handing out variances left and right for no apparent reason. Variances for the average person are there for, to contain yourself, but these developers pay these fees, they go for the variances and they get them. It's very rare that I've seen lately that a variance was denied. And when this project went forward the other day, it was really insulting to the public, the way the drawings were done. Everything was changed on the fly. I mean, really some care should have been taken, and the the application should have been denied until they resubmitted. That's just how I feel. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Sure. So I understand and can appreciate your concerns, especially with your proximity to the project. Again, the reason that planning boards exist is because, well, let me put it this way.
I know why they exist. I'm an architect, so I understand totally.
Sure.
And this group was totally unprofessional in the way they presented this project.
Sure.
And this should never move forward.
Sure. So, and again, just to say that there would be no need for a planning board if everything always had to be built as of right. That's the purpose of planning boards, is to grant, again, in this case, de minimis types of variances that had minor modifications from what was permitted versus what they were applying and requesting. Again, I can understand some of your concerns that you're raising, again, with the proximity that you have to that project.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even allowed to ask continuation of questions at the end, because I understand the meeting went long, but I was, I'm probably one of the most affected of the bunch, but I wasn't allowed to ask the questions like, what are they happening with the fence that's there? How is the construction going to impact, the streets here, because they're going to have construction fencing, and with them building right on the property line for an underground garage, you're pushing into the street. None of that was brought up and taken into account.
So I can tell you, I'd be happy to have you, get you in touch with the developer on this project, so that we can make sure that they are going to do everything that they can to make this, as.
I'd love to talk to him.
Sure, and I'll definitely make that happen. I'll reach out to you. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, Ms. Nolan, I see you have your hand raised. Ms. Nolan, you're not muted, but there's no audio. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask if anybody else has questions, and I'll come back to you, Ms. Nolan. Are there any other questions that anybody has? Feel free to raise your hand. And again, it doesn't have to be about development. It could be about anything in town. Mr. Fernandez?
Yes, well, I talked to you and I look at the screen. I've been looking at the comments that most people write. And again and again, they are complaining about the planning board, how incompetent they are. I don't know if you can read them while you're talking or what. How they do not listen to people, how unprepared they are. That was exactly my point the other day at the council meeting when I said that they were not, they are there to, it seems like they are there to protect the developers and not the residents of the township. It seems to me that, and there was a comment, I don't know if it was today or a couple of days ago, that the planning, it takes more to get 13, it takes more to get a permit to put a deck on your house than to get 13 variances from a developer. And that shouldn't happen. We should all be treated equally, number one. And like I said, I personally attended a planning board and they were very unprepared. I've listened to a couple of them by computer, and they were very, very unprofessional, very unprepared.
Mr. Nick, can I ask, who's unprepared? Is the plan, are you indicating that the planning board is not prepared? Or
Yes.
are you indicating that
They
professionals-
conduct the business like in a very like they want to bulldoze, they want to oppress the residents. And I think they take offense if we ask questions, to be honest with you, when it should be the other way around.
All I can say is that, I mean, I don't find that residents are oppressed after being provided, a 5.5, 6 hour meeting to ask questions, and again, we can disagree on that point. I understand your concern, but I mean, I could tell you that this planning board is always prepared. Anytime I call any of the planning board members, they always know everything that's being requested. Any variances.
Yeah. In fact, look at the comments right now. Some people are agreeing with me that they got a hard time getting a permit for a deck. However, a developer goes there and asks for 13 variances, no parking spaces or whatever, and they get approved. Meanwhile, a resident.
Well, but the question is a hard time with the deck. I don't recall. I mean, I don't recall.
Well, I'm just reading the
coming
comment.
before the planning board. Again,
Yeah.
so things are things may be taken out of context here.
I don't know. I'm just reading what they write.
Okay, I see maybe Miss Nolan has her hand.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, a couple of things. One, as far as the one bedroom building apartments, I'm a teacher. I have students who live in the one bedroom apartments with their parents, and not everyone wants to buy a home with a yard because they don't want to do the maintenance. So there may be kids coming from there. And there's 200 units there. In addition to which, I'm concerned about the Kirk's building is now empty, and the building next across the street from Valley Bank is empty that Valley owns. And there's probably going to be more development there on top of whatever's on the corner there by the pit. And behind 44 Main on Patterson Avenue, there's a big space there that was my understanding they wanted to build another building just like 44 Main. That's a lot of additional housing units. And they're right, I realized there wasn't that much more traffic from the mill, but this is just going to add to it. My other concern has been something I mentioned to you a couple of years ago in an in-person pilot meeting that you had about the pilot money. I know I'm no longer on the board of trustees of the library, but my concern is pilot money. They don't get tax money. Your library doesn't get tax money out of it. And you're going to get hundreds and hundreds more residents who may be using a library with no additional funds because it's not tax money.
Sure, and what I can tell you is this. First, with the library, I would have to check it. You may be correct, but the township can allocate additional funds to a library if
But
necessary.
they never have.
I
Since the mill went in, they never have.
Okay, well, what I can tell you is that in the past year, I certainly have already. The library now has its lawn maintained by the DPW rather than paying an outside contractor to maintain it. The same thing with snow removal, so there are certainly ways that the municipality can assist the library for any potential that, again, this development may cause adverse to the library. As far as the number of students that, will be seen, sure. Could there be one bedroom units where there is a parent and a child living in it? Sure, it's certainly possible. Well, of course, anything is possible. Is it likely? It's not very likely. What I can tell you is, again, of the recent 108 units that have been constructed and that are all occupied now, there are only 5 additional students attending the Little Falls schools. So again, using those numbers, using the Little Falls numbers, and we can't compare Little Falls to all of, everywhere at the same time, but using Little Falls numbers, there's only 5 additional students from the 108 additional units that have been developed thus far. Mr. May, I see your hand again.
Yes, thank you. I just had one other question on
Sure.
going forward on the way the town is going to look and stuff. Is there a way that the planning board, the town, you can be a little bit more finicky of what's being proposed for designs? I mean, just allowing developer to come in, because all developers do this. I've worked with hundreds of them in the past. Every developer has their set style and architect because they already paid for all the design work and everything, and they're not taking into account the nature of the place that we're actually going to be putting it in, like Little Falls. It's cookie cutter and it's unappealing. And even McDonald's, in a lot of cases, will go the extra length in design specifically for this, but I don't see that happening in town. It's not architecturally, it's going to be unappealing if there's no game plan for what's going to, I understand there's certain things that are allowed, but what's being proposed does not meet that criteria in any way, shape, or form.
Sure. So another great question. What I can tell you is this, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, but unfortunately, you can't dictate style. You can prohibit certain types of materials. You can do things like that, but you can't dictate style alone. You can't dictate color unless, under some limited circumstances in other cities and municipalities where there's some major historic sections. But there is no way for the planning board to dictate style or color choice. That is one of the things that is not permitted. So that is one of the issues that we do face. And
you can control it more by eliminating some of the options that are available and dictating more what the stylistic values are.
Yeah,
you can do that.
I will say, I am not opposed to that. If you want to send me an email with some suggestions, I always say that ordinances are living documents. They're made to be updated. They're made to be modified. They're made to change with the times. And, I'm not opposed to that at all. I'm certainly open to suggestions in that sense as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Schultz, I see your hand again.
Yes, thank you. I was thinking back to what, some of the comments about the traffic.
Sure.
And I recall that before the municipal building was built, there were some issues about the traffic between Main Street and I believe it was Montclair Avenue, that it was already an E-rated intersection, and that was used to limit the number of people who could work at the municipal building. And that was done by the county. So given that the Main Street is a county road, when you say that the town doesn't have any ability to affect the traffic or the parking on the Main Street, that the county does?
No, the township has an ability to change parking on Main Street. The township has an ability to change the timing of traffic lights that we maintain on county roads. That was related to your question of, adding bike lanes and making it more bike friendly and safe down the roadways. That is something that if we're going to modify the roadway to that extent, we would need some county approvals for.
But my point was that the intersection was rated E before the municipal building was even built. That was before the construction on Route 46 began. So the argument that the traffic on Main Street is due to people trying to bypass Route 46 is not an accurate statement.
So you'll have to forgive me. I don't know what E means. Can you just help me?
It means it's so bad that it can't get any worse. That you have to wait up to between 3 and 5 minutes at the intersection to be able to make a turn, which is in fact true. Living at the Mill, I can tell you that during pre-COVID times, it would take 3 to 5 minutes to be able to make a turn onto Main Street. And if you now add another 200 and some odd units feeding onto Main Street, it's going to make it intolerable and impossible to move, especially at rush hour and in the mornings.
Yeah, so what I can say to that is, again, the timing of those traffic lights was changed just some time prior to COVID. I can tell you it certainly assisted with the flow of traffic and the backup that there used to be in that intersection. There was certainly more of a backup in the past than there has been recently. Is not really a good indicator, but then there was prior to COVID. Again, the timing of the traffic signals assisted in that, and moving more people really east on Main Street at Stevens Ave was one of the major contributing factors, because that intersection at Union was actually backed up to the point where people couldn't continue to turn because the intersection of Main and Stevens was so backed up. Again, this is all prior to any of the development that was happening in town. And again, Route 46 has always been a nightmare. And a very good telltale sign of that is if there's an accident on Route 46, Little Falls becomes an absolute nightmare. And I will say right here, right now, there's absolutely nothing that anyone's going to do about that. That's just a byproduct of it running parallel with Route 46 and people trying to find the path of least resistance. But again, I get what you're saying. I think there are some easy solutions, such as changing the timing of traffic lights and things like that.
Could there be consideration of putting an additional traffic light in front of some of these construction projects to control traffic flow in and out of those projects?
So in my opinion, traffic lights create traffic. Traffic lights do not create a free flow of traffic. Now, they're important in intersections where there are, hundreds of cars that would be crossing paths, but traffic lights only create traffic, and only where there are substantial backups, where there's no traffic light, would a traffic light be beneficial. And I see none of that at any of the other intersections in town where there's no traffic light. For example, Center Ave, I've never seen Center Ave stacked with a dozen cars waiting to make a right or left onto Main Street. What I will say is, at the intersection of Center Ave, at the intersection of Montclair Ave on Main Street, at a lot of these intersections, what I do see is the intersections completely blocked. And the council just recently passed a resolution to actually have our DPW install the don't block the box painting, so that if somebody, or so that it's more visible that you are blocking an intersection and prohibiting the free flow of traffic through it while there is, while you're waiting at a light or waiting for, your ability to continue driving. So that is something that was done. Again, it's a simple solution that may assist in keeping that free flow of traffic.
I just see more fatalities occurring on Main Street in front of the post office.
Again, certainly a bad intersection. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that that intersection is blocked frequently. Again, illegally, but frequently. Ms. Nolan, I see your hand up again.
Okay, but do you have any idea what's going to happen with the intersection where Kirk's is and the building next to it, or on behind 44 Main, or even Walgreens, because those are all areas that could be add to further development? And I'm not necessarily against development. I just don't want to see so many houses. I don't want to become Montclair. I don't want to be Hoboken. Little Falls has a really wonderful small town feeling to it. I know we did need to replace the taxes from all the houses left in Siniac. So I truly agree with some of this. It's just that with the 200 units there and on Autumn Point and where For Dancers Only are and the Abbey, that's just a lot at one time to absorb. So if we have these other empty lots there that may also be redeveloped, that is a lot for a small town as big as the size of ours to absorb at one time. So I'm not against the development. I'm not complaining about that. I just don't want overdevelopment at one time.
Sure. So unfortunately, no. The short answer to your question, I have not seen any plans. None have been proposed regarding the Kirk's building, the Main and Stevens intersection, the old Walgreens building. There have been no plans that have been provided or forwarded to the town for any review. What would be permitted on Patterson Ave? Again, the redevelopment plan kind of clearly defines and outlines what is permissible there. I don't recall off the top of my head exactly what is permitted in that area. I believe it was something Let me see, I may have a note on it here. I'm not entirely sure. I believe it might have been something like 60 some odd units on what would be the east side of Patterson Ave with 7,000 square feet of retail, as well as a number of condos and townhome style with first floor retail on the west side of Patterson Ave.
'Cause one of the problems with adding more retail in town is what we keep getting is we now have 3 eyelash places in town for a small town like this, nail salons, pizza places, hair salons. We're not getting a variety there. We're getting more of the same thing. So adding more retail of the same, unless you can find a way to attract other types of retail, we're kind of getting filled up with that, what we keep getting.
I laugh at that statement because you are exactly right. The number of pizza places and eyelash places is certainly has grown. But I think a balance in that type of retail will essentially automatically come. Either if that many businesses in the small area can thrive doing the same thing, I would be absolutely shocked. So seeing a dozen of the same type of place, I think is unlikely. But you're right. Unfortunately, controlling what type of retail comes into retail establishments is not something that the council, or the planning board has any real control.
That's why building more retail in the center of town, it just isn't going to help. Isn't going to do anything. It's going to be more buildings to be empty because we've had several empty buildings in town for a while, off and on.
Sure, and I understand again where you're coming from with that. I do think that there will be eventually a nice balance by virtue of just essentially the market demanding that.
And then one other thing is, I know that someone had addressed walking in town and crosswalks. Many people have told me that they see me walking all over town because I'm a walker. When I get off here, I'm going to go for a walk. I have discussed several times with Councilman Cherry getting a crosswalk somewhere near the park crossing Main Street. I know the county, it says it has to go from corner to corner and can't go to where there's a parking lot. But it used to be there was a crosswalk down by your office, and that isn't even there anymore. So there's no crosswalk from Lincoln till all the way down, probably by Quick Check, which is a long space not to have a crosswalk on Main Street. So I'm just putting that in there. If you have any anyone that you can talk to about that, we really need more crosswalks along Main Street.
Yeah, so you're right. There is a curb cut right in front. I'm sorry, there is a crosswalk right in front of my office, and the next closest one is all the way up towards Lincoln. The issue that we face is that in order for a crosswalk to be installed, both sides need to be ADA accessible. There needs to be a curb cut that meets ADA requirements so that a wheelchair could make its way up and down. They don't want to leave somebody stranded in the street without being able to make their way up a curb. Unfortunately, a lot of those locations have driveways across the way or things like that that are not really viable.
But down by the church, down a little bit further down, right by where the I don't remember which church it is. But there's a crosswalk there almost by Patterson Avenue that goes at an angle across Main Street. So it doesn't have to go directly across. It can go at an angle, and that would even be helpful because it is by Kirk's. There's no place to cross there. When you're having more and more events down at Memorial Park, there should be a safe way for people to get across the street.
I agree with you. It's definitely something that needs to be addressed in that area. Again, finding the exact location is the challenge, but I don't disagree with you that a crosswalk is warranted in that area.
Thank you for listening.
Are there any other questions before we wrap up tonight? Yep, 1, 2, 4.
Hello again. So I just wanted to ask, what about reparations for any direct or indirect damage during construction? Since the Abbey project, I've had, aside from basically it just looks like I took my house dune buggy. It was absolutely filthy. There was no soil control. There was no water control. There was, the rocks that were all over the place. The street sweeper barely went by. And, to your credit, when I did bring this up in that meeting, I did notice that the street sweeper started coming by more often. So to that credit, yes. But unfortunately, it still didn't do anything for my cracked windshield. When I went out the one day, I saw one of those gray little rocks and it was resting on my windshield wiper. And I took a look and, the burden of proof is on me. So I had no choice. I had to go through my insurance company. And luckily enough, they sent somebody to at least, what do you call it? Fill in the crack, so then now with the Stevens Avenue project directly, literally on my backyard and my side, right? I've had numerous incidents, right? The worst being, oh my God, I don't know where you found it. I mean, not you, but where they found the landscaper, but Jesus Christmas. They were just dropping trees all over my fence, and then when they were stump grinding, I mean, I should, by all rights, I should have just reported that to OSHA. There was no protective equipment on the workers. They did no effort to protect my property. They literally, the only reason why I knew was because rocks and dirt was bouncing off my windows. And I said, what the heck's going on? I went outside of my side, the side door, and I see the stump grinder with no protection whatsoever, grinding everywhere, sending rocks and wood chips onto my porch, into my windowsill, onto my screen. And then the worst one was that I don't know what kind of projectile it was. I would imagine it's probably a rock. It literally shot through minimum 20 feet in one part of my fence. Okay. Ironically, when I called the police to file the report, it was actually the policeman that found the piece of the fence more than 20 feet away from where it was. And it was this big gaping hole in my fence. So, aside from that, the back fence is bowing because when they had the bulldozer pushing all of that stuff indiscriminately, they literally piled the dirt up against the post on that back fence, and it bowed the fence enough that it slips out during windstorms. Granted, they did make a little bit of effort to try to kind of push it back a little bit, but I don't know how much more they're going to come back to, I guess, repair that. I don't know. I did kind of talk to the project manager, and the train's coming by. Stan, hold on.
So what I'll say is this, while the train passes, I mean, all of these things seem very, specific to your particular property in the project that is happening near you. I will say that, I mean, on a personal level, I mean, I have, I agree with everything that you're saying. Those are all certainly valid concerns if all of these things are happening. They should absolutely be made right by developers or property owners as these things happen. Look, accidents happen. I'm not, hopefully all required precautions are in place. Even then, accidents happen. But if there's damage, if there are issues like that, they should be fixed. I have no tolerance for that. I have no tolerance for people working recklessly. Again, I get they're all very particular to your home there. But certainly, again, I can assist you in all of those things, or at least having a conversation with the group that's doing that development.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, but like the problem is, the burden of proof is on the homeowner, right? So then I have to prove that, the fence wasn't damaged beforehand, which as soon as I got wind, when he's like, you got to be honest with me, that's when I called the cops. Originally, I was willing to work this out with him, right? And then until he threw that in, I said, oh, okay, I see where this is going. So that's when I called the police for official documentation. So that was just with the landscaper. That's
Sure.
not even with anything else. I mean, for when they dug out all of that greenery and they basically left it as a pit, this was when they were preparing to put in the drainage system. It was literally a mud pit for months. And I was wondering, why did my PSE&G bill skyrocket? I mean, the electric literally shot up from some months from 23% to like 34% or something. And I went downstairs and I double checked. The sump pump was operating so often that the water was actually somewhat warm for something where the sump pump water is usually pretty darn cold. I mean,
I
so
think this comes down to just being a good neighbor and, working with, the developer here. And again, I'm happy to help facilitate that for you.
Okay, so I would appreciate having a conversation outside of this then with that. I would
Sure.
greatly appreciate the help.
Absolutely. Mr. Irizarry, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, how you doing? Ms. Damiano. My question is around the sort of development of the downtown area, specifically like the Main Street, Stevens, Patterson Ave, Maple Street Triangle. You mentioned you want to make it like a vibrant downtown. When my wife and I go to different downtowns, be it Ridgewood, be it Montclair, right? The reason why they're nice to go to is because obviously you have the restaurants, you have the business, but you also have seating areas, you have benches, you have places you could sit down and spend time with your family, you have outdoor space that you could enjoy. Are there plans to improve that as far as for the downtown to make more either green space or more pavilion space to make it a destination? Larger sidewalks, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So that's a great question. Actually, one of the things that I have been proposing, and again, this is going to need some assistance from the county and facilitation through them, is part of what I was hoping to ultimately see happen in the downtown is Patterson Ave become a one-way south, which is from Patterson Ave to Main Street. Part of the reason I want to see that is because it would narrow the roadway and widen the sidewalks, which was one of the pedestrian safety issues or concerns that were raised earlier in a way to facilitate pedestrian safety. As part of that project, as you know, as you get to Main Street on Patterson Ave, the intersection between, really the east and west side of Patterson Ave is got to be 150 feet wide or so. It's a very, very wide intersection there. Actually carving out a good portion of that intersection, which is the roadway now up to where that island is essentially, and making that a pedestrian plaza is actually something that has been discussed in the past. So adding outdoor tables, adding some decorative planters around that area to make it safe, adding an area where you can pick up food from a local eatery and go eat there is definitely something that has been discussed. It's definitely something that's been circulated. But in order to really get that to happen, again, we need some assistance from the county. And we need to get the entire plan underway. So definitely something that could be a possibility down there.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Mr. Zerberg, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to respond to a topic that I see on Facebook an awful lot. And the idea that we're losing our quaint small town feel that we all love. And I just wanted to offer kind of a different perspective because I work for an architecture and planning firm. And for the record, we're not affiliated with any of the work that's going on in town here in the area. But I do see, I see what happens to towns that resist progress and development. And the unfortunate thing is they don't remain quaint and lovable. They fall into disrepair. They lose tax revenue. They lose businesses and jobs. I moved to town about 6 years ago because I love that small town feel that we have here, but I don't see it going away. I see that vision that we have to keep improving. We have to keep capitalizing when we have financial opportunities. I don't know. I appreciate the time in these town hall settings. I appreciate all the members of council that I've gotten to talk to, and I just wanted to offer up there that I see a commitment to the town to keep that feel, and I don't think it's a mutually exclusive thing. I think we can keep that thing that we all love about Little Falls and continue to explore these, continue to invest in these projects. I think it's important that we do it, actually.
Thank you for your comments. Yeah, and you make a good point in the fact that, by doing nothing, you fall into disrepair. And that's a fear of mine. I've said time and time again, I was raised here. I'm raising my kids here. I intend to raise them here. I intend to put them through the schools here. I want this town to thrive. I only want what's best for Little Falls. I have received zero personal benefit from any of these things that are happening in town. Again, I've always said this jokingly. I do this, and this being me being mayor, I do this because I truly love it. I certainly don't do it for the $115 a month that I earn being mayor. That is certainly not the reason that I do this. I do this because I want to see Little Falls thrive. that's really it. And I will also say to everyone here now, I'm not afraid that when my time has come to pass the baton to the next person who wants to run for mayor. For now, while I enjoy it, while I wake up every morning still loving doing this, I'm going to continue to run for mayor while I still have things to do. When I run out of things to do, when I feel that I have nothing to add to benefit Little Falls anymore, when I wake up in the morning saying, I hate this, I don't know why I do this, I will hang up my hat. I will pass the baton. I will move on. This is, I don't do this for any personal gain. In fact, it probably hurts business. So to say that, there's personal gain in this for me is absolutely far-fetched, but I absolutely appreciate what you're saying about keeping this town quaint, keeping the small town feel while having a thriving downtown. That is my vision for this town. Mr. Fernandez, I don't know if your hand is still up from the last time or if you've raised it again, but feel free if you have something.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
There you are. Yep.
All right. One thing before I logged out, I want to say that it was nice to see so many people involved in this meeting. I hope this continues. I'm sad when I go to City Hall to the meetings and there's only like 10 people, if that many, that listen to the problems that the township is going through, and they participate. Please take an hour and a half. That's the most that they last, these meetings, and attend. Express your opinion. Express your voice. Let the mayor of the council know whether you agree or disagree with it. Be part of the township, not just once in 3 years or every 4 years to attend this meeting. Be a part of this township. Thank you.
On that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. What I will say is that I'm hoping to have another town hall soon, but I want to have a town hall that has no real topic. It has no real agenda. The only thing that it has is a discussion. I want to just be able to answer some questions, again, not necessarily about this particular topic, about any questions or concerns that you may have. Spitballing ideas is, with everybody in town is sort of how, things evolve, how things get started, how projects come to fruition, how new ideas, become reality. I will say, I appreciate everyone joining. I wish more people had comments to make. I unfortunately wasn't able to keep up with the chat the whole time. I just opened it now. I'm not sure that there were real questions that were in there that I would have or could have or should have answered. So I apologize if I didn't get to any of those, but I'll answer one or two more before we wrap up this evening. Ms. Schultz, I see your hand there.
Yes, thank you. This is actually on a completely different topic, and it has to do with the river park behind Main Street. And I've noticed that parts of it are falling into disrepair, and that the trail that goes down behind the gazebo along the river, that the trash hasn't been picked up there probably in a really long time. And I'm wondering if you could get someone to pay some attention to that.
Sure. When was the last time you were there? Because that was brought to my attention about a week ago, and I know it was clean the following day. Has it been within the past week or so?
No, it was it was exactly 2 weeks ago.
Yep, I'm hoping that that's been addressed. I was told it was addressed the day after I was made aware of that about a week ago. So I'm hoping that that's been addressed, and I'll follow up with that tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
You bet. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I appreciate everyone coming on this evening. Again, I hope we do another one soon, and I hope everybody joins where we have no real agenda, just some discussion. Thanks everyone, and have a good night.
Good night.